11:47 p.m. You've been awake for 16 hours and you just spent all of them reacting. A notification pulled your eyes down while you were still tasting your coffee. Then, a headline rewired your mood. Then an email that was probably nothing sent you spinning for the rest of the afternoon. You got into bed wired and exhausted. And if someone asked you what you actually did today, not what you responded to, but what you did, you'd have nothing. You've been played. The question is whether there's a way out that doesn't take years of therapy or a monastery. Something you can test in a single month. Something that was already working 2,000 years ago. Marcus Aurelius woke up every morning to run the Roman Empire. Before he did anything else, he sat down with a notebook and wrote himself a single line. Today I will meet arrogant, envious, and treacherous people, and none of them can touch me without my permission. He wasn't a philosopher on a hill. He was the emperor. Epictetus started life as a slave with a broken leg and finished it teaching that nobody who masters their own mind can ever be called unfree. Seneca had Nero for a boss. Nero eventually told him to kill himself. And Seneca got up the next morning, ate breakfast, and did it. Because he'd spent decades practicing for exactly that moment. These men were not reciting aphorisms. They were running a daily mental protocol that hardened them against everything the world could throw. We forgot the protocol. The quote survived, framed on Instagram, but stripped of the practice that gave them weight. So here's the experiment. You take 3 of their practices and you run them every day for 30 days. No philosophy books, no lectures, just exercises. And at the end of the month, you'll have your answer. Either this is the most overhyped self-help relic on the internet, or those Roman guys were right and the rest of us have been making life way harder than it needs to be. First practice is called the dichotomy of control. It works like this. Every time something disturbs you, you stop and ask, can I do something about this? If yes, then act. If no, it's none of your business. Sounds obvious, but it's not. Try it for 24 hours, and you'll discover that 90% of your daily anxiety is time wasted on things you cannot change. The traffic, a stranger's tweet, your aunt's opinion of your career. The Stoics weren't trying to control the world, but they controlled their reactions. And here's the point. The world isn't there to obey you. It's just there. And you are the only variable you have 100% power over. Here's what happens after a week of this. The volume of the world turns down. Things that used to make you explode start to feel like information. A coworker, a queue, an unexpected problem. You realize they're not threats or personal attacks, but just data. You'll start to think like, oh, it's raining, I'll just grab an umbrella. Instead of, why is it raining today of all days? Is this a sign? Does the universe hate me? It sounds absurd when you say it out loud, but this is exactly how we live. The second practice is what the Stoics called premeditatio malorum, which translates to something like rehearsing the worst. And before you dismiss this as morbid, stay with me. Every morning, before you start your day, you imagine losing what you have. Your job, the person next to you in bed, your health. Not to be pessimistic, but because they've noticed a flaw in human wiring. Modern science calls this hedonic adaptation. Basically, you just get used to everything, even the good things. A new phone feels normal in 3 days. A promotion becomes routine in 2 weeks. And suddenly, you're back to feeling dissatisfied, with more than what you had a year ago. The Stoics understood that pleasure fades until you deliberately interrupt the fade. So they practiced loss, briefly, intentionally, so that when they opened their eyes, the coffee tasted like coffee again, and the person next to them felt like a person, not furniture. Try it tomorrow morning. Close your eyes for 60 seconds and imagine today is the last day you get to have exactly this life. Then open your eyes and walk through it with a level of attention you didn't remember you could have. The third and final practice is also the hardest one: voluntary discomfort. Seneca, one of the richest men in Rome, dressed like a beggar once a month and slept on the ground, not because he was insane, but because he knew that the fear of poverty is worse than poverty itself. Today, 76% of adults under 35 report chronic anxiety. We are the most connected generation in history and also the most fragile. Why? Because we have eliminated every form of discomfort. Perfect temperature, food on demand, infinite entertainment. And when the first real problem hits, a rejection, a failure, a loss, the system crashes. It is not trained. So here's the protocol. 1 cold shower a week. Start with 30 seconds and build. 1 meal skipped voluntarily, not as a diet, but just to sit with the sensation of wanting something and not reaching for it. And once a week, 10 full minutes with every screen off. No music, no input, just you in a room with your own thoughts. If the last one sounds terrifying, that's exactly why you need it. After a month of this, your brain has learned that discomfort passes. It always passes. And once you know that, a lot of things change. Here we are, day 30. You've spent a month separating what you control from what you don't. A month visualizing loss to appreciate what you have. A month chasing discomfort instead of avoiding it. When a problem enters the room, part of you automatically checks, can I move this? If the answer is no, anxiety still flickers, but it doesn't stay. It's somehow different. Not because you've gone numb, but because you've stopped being at the mercy of things. Stoicism doesn't promise that life gets easier. It promises that you become a little tougher than life. And 2,000 years of history, from emperors to slaves, from soldiers to CEOs, says it works. The challenge starts tomorrow morning. You don't need to sign up or buy anything. Just wake up, do 3 things, and see how you feel after 30 days. If you want to go deeper, subscribe. We release one of these every week.